You're listening to the Savings Tip Jar with Dom Beattie and Denise Raywood, powered by Savings.com.au, your home of consumer finance news, guides, and product comparisons. Yeah, g'day, how you doing? Thanks for listening to another episode of this Savings Tip Jar. Just a quick heads up that this week and next week's episode will only feature pre-recorded dollar dialogue discussions as I'm actually on leave, taking a nice winter break. So no savings news roundups for the next 2 weeks. And I also should note that this week's Dollar Dialogue, which includes a chat about the changes to CGT in the federal budget, was recorded before the government announced that it was giving exemptions to small businesses and innovative startups. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Although to be fair, I did say at the end that such carve-outs weren't likely. So yeah, enjoy the chat and we'll have another good Dollar Dialogue for you next week. Happy savings. Okay, time for our regular Dollar Dialogue segment. And this week we're joined by a very special guest, and that's Brooke Roberts, who's the co-founder and co-CEO of wealth app Sharesies. G'day, Brooke. Welcome to the Savings Tip Jar.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thank you.
Before we start off with anything, Brooke, let's hear your savings tip.
Oh, okay. So my savings tip is I used to work at a bank and manage all of their savings and investment products. And we did a deep dive into what made the best savers. And there were 3 things that the best savers did that showed that their balances would grow like 4 times more than others. And they did 3 things. So they named their account after their specific goal. So if it's like to travel or car, whatever it might be, you name your account really specifically after that. You set up an automatic payment going into it. So quite often people, they don't do that when they're saving, but it's really important because you could miss it if you're like, oh, just transfer the money here or there. But if you have that automatic payment going into that specific goal, account is really important. And then the third thing is have a deadline. So when you want to reach it by. And those were the 3 key elements that made really great savings behaviors, habits, and ultimately good savings balances too.
Absolutely. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because that could apply to a lot of things in life, I suppose. If you don't have a goal in mind and you're not letting things happen sort of unconsciously, and you don't have a set time that you want to have something done by, it probably won't ever happen. So that makes a lot of sense. So that's good to hear and worth reminding our listeners of if they are trying to save and build wealth. But speaking of building wealth, you guys have this app called Sharesies. I understand it originated in New Zealand, but it is available in Australia as well. Can you just give us a general background of what Sharesies is and how it got started?
Yeah, so Sharesies, as you said, is a wealth app. We provide access to investing on the Australian Stock Exchange, US exchanges, and New Zealand too. So a real wide range of investing. And we started Sharesies because we thought, financial empowerment should be for everyone. And with the technology available today, there's no reason that more people can't get access to developing wealth. And we saw that we could we all interact online and we have these incredible experiences when it comes to other parts of life, but often not money. When you're dealing with your money, it seems quite stark, or it's just not as a great, beautiful, lovable experience. And so we really wanted to create a wealth app that really helped people grow wealth over the long term and enable them to have a really great experience and learn a lot as they went.
So what's how does investing in your model compare to, say, investing generally? What's the difference between, going down your path?
Well, what's really cool on the Sharesies experience is, people can invest however much they want into any of the investment options. So that could be that you want to invest regularly into different exchange traded funds, or you want to go into a specific company and you can invest however much that works for you. Often on other platforms, you have to buy a full share, but with us, we really care about how can we help people invest how much they want at any time and build their wealth in the long term. So we have an auto invest feature too that enables people to develop that wealth over time, and also the ability to do roundups too. So if you're, you can round up into your investing. So it's really cool to see more people getting access to investing in ways that we're used to experiencing when it comes to spending money or investing money, and we just really, really care that more and more people get access to this, no matter how much wealth you've got.
Yeah, for sure. And what sort of fees are involved with your platform?
Yeah, so we have so on Sharesies we have a pricing where it has caps. So if you want to buy something on the US exchange, you pay a max of $5, but that's the top cap that you'd pay, $5 US. So, and then in Australia, if you want to buy some Aussie shares, it's a max of $6 Australian, and then New Zealand is 25. But again, the pricing steps up to that. So that's how the pricing works if you want to pay as you go. But there's also subscriptions, so you can sign up to a plan where you get, say $5, and you can buy $500 worth of or sell $500 worth of investments, or have $1,000 in auto invest too. So we've tried to make it really economical, so it scales as your and then there's those caps too to make sure it's really cost effective. So we really care about making sure that it's a real fair way of investing.
Brooke, we've had some investment tax changes in Australia over the last month or so, and there's been a lot of people up in arms over these, including people who these were sort of sold as helping young people get ahead. There's been a lot of people point out that, there are a lot of young investors out there that will be hit by the taxes as well. What are your thoughts on these, and, how might they affect young investors who you're sort of targeting?
Yeah. I mean, first off, investing is incredibly important for our economy. When you're investing, say in Australian businesses, and you're actually helping that business grow or employ people, or fulfill what it needs within the Australian economy. So it's a real productive part of how we operate, and it's really crucial. And for our young people in particular, it's even more important to be investing because they've got so much time on their side. And investing, depending on what you're investing in, but it's different risk level to savings, but over time in markets, typically investing does outperform, and so it's really important that young people get to own stakes of the economy and own parts of companies, and feel that, and get their ownership. So they're not only relying on their wages and their superannuation, so that they can have more opportunities later in life and have that ability to make the most of what they're really valuable in, which is time. So when you come to young people, that the biggest benefit for them is that long-term compounding returns, and the new regime does bite into that quite a bit. So the old one, you'd have the 50% discount on the CGT, and now that's taken away. So I saw that the Financial Services Council modelled it directly, say for a 25-year-old. What if a 25-year-old with a medium income investing $10,000 in Australian shares would pay $151 more in tax after 2 years, $1,443 more in tax after 10 years, and $7,552 more in tax after 20 years. So it just shows the real power of how much that is impacting their ability to get access to those returns, and which is part of the benefit of taking that risk and investing, is that the outpace in returns. So yeah, it's definitely really significant over the long term, especially for the younger people.
Yeah, it sometimes comes across as like maybe like you're getting punished for trying to do the right thing. That is what they often recommend is, which is particularly when you're young and you're saving up for a house or just saving for your future in general, that you should, because you've got that time on your side to ride out the ups and downs of the share market, that you should be investing. You should be taking a bit of a risk with your money, with your capital. And you sacrificing, trips overseas that you probably want to be doing, but instead saving that money and investing it. And then you're just going to cop an extra tax for that. So I think a lot of young investors will probably be rightly perturbed by that. But speaking of people that do sort of take risks with their money, those people that decide to start up a business, that's the other one that people are getting quite outraged about regarding these changes, is that they could be very much punished. Particularly when they start a business and they invest blood, sweat, and tears, and also obviously all their own savings and money into it. And then when it comes to, say, sell the business, could get whacked with a massive tax of up to, what is it, like 47% of that. So you're someone, though, that started Sharesies, obviously in New Zealand. where it's a very different environment. There's a zero capital gains tax. So I wanted to hear your perspective and what your thoughts are on how these changes could impact that entrepreneurship startup culture in Australia.
Yeah. Look, I think that is a real big impact, especially for those at that early stage where they want to, you want to incentivize entrepreneurship. You want to incentivize people to take those risks and take those bold moves, because that's how an economy can grow over time. Where, there's incredible companies that we've got in Australia, like Canberra, Atlassian's, Safety Culture, Culture Amp. There's so many where somebody has taken a risk and then the team's corralled really early, and they've got employee share schemes, and then it's grown over time and really compounded and added a lot of value to the Australian economy. So it's really, really important that there are those rewards there, and there's that ability to reward those early employees and make sure that they get access to be able to buy homes and things in the future. And that's a really cool part about starting a business, because often when you start, you don't have that much money behind you. So you need to create employee share schemes so that you can, if you can't really pay market salaries, but you want to attract the top talent, and people to be able to do that buy-in. They've taken a big risk, often pay cuts or no pay, in order to start something that they think will be really meaningful and impactful for Australia and their, the wider users. So it's really important that there is, because it often can't pay off either, so when there is that return, it's really important. So yeah, I think that that's a really important aspect, and really want to make sure that there's, the government does look into really smart regulations around this, because the current tax regimes, kind of suggested by the government, have the potential to really discourage people from, participating in the share market, but also from taking those entrepreneurial calculated, hopefully, but those risks really early on. And it's really, really important part. So I know that the Australian Tech Council is looking at this and working with the government, and I really hope that we do, have an economy that does incentivize innovation and entrepreneurship, because it's something we're really, really good at. Yeah.
So for an everyday Aussie who's, looking at your app or any other app and wondering, should I even bother to do this now? Is this even going to be worth my while? Is there something else I should be looking at? And we've seen, that certainly affect the property market in the very short term since these things were announced. What should they do? What's your advice? Do you go ahead
Yeah.
anyway?
Yeah, no, I think it's I generally, I can only give general. I don't know the specific people and what the circumstances, but generally, if you look over the history and you look long term, investing is a really important way to be able to develop wealth. And so no matter if, there is more tax, there's still an ability to develop to get, to keep part of the capital gains that you receive. And that is an important part, to be able to, make sure your money is working hard for you, make sure that you're putting your money into companies or funds that you really care about, that are creating a company, but also the country that you want to be participating in. And it is a really important part of owning a stake, is such a bigger way of growing wealth compared to simply earning your wage, plus super. So I think, yeah, overall, it's still a really important aspect of our economy and our way to be able to grow wealth. And as we've talked quite a bit about younger people, on Sharesies, what got people from 0 to 97 years old. But if we focus on them, they are finding it a lot harder to get into housing and get other aspects of investing. So investing in the share market, where you can put amounts away every payday with amounts you can afford, is an important way for be able to access those types of returns in the future.
Yeah. I sometimes count myself as a bit of a case study testimonial to that. As I was building up my deposit for my house, I was actively investing in shares directly, as well as through wealth apps in ETFs and whatnot, and that really helped accelerate my deposit savings towards affording our dream house. So
Yeah.
and I miss it a bit, because since we bought the house, I just feel the need to put everything into the mortgage, into the offset account. But and I do still dabble occasionally in
We
the
could
odd
do the
share
roundups
purchase.
too now, like it doesn't
Yeah.
That you'd still be building your investment portfolio while you know.
Oh, for sure. The roundups thing, it really is. Yeah, it does work. It just happens in the background without even realizing it, and you are
It's incredible how
investing,
it
and
adds
then
up.
just it's incredible. Well, Brooke Roberts, really appreciate your time on the Savings Tip Jar podcast. We've certainly learned a lot about Sharesies, but not just that, but also just your general thoughts on some of these budget changes. And yeah, I think I expect that there probably will be some carve outs from this government regarding those tax changes, particularly around that sort of startup culture
Yeah.
and entrepreneurship, because we can't afford for our best and brightest to be leaving the country. Particularly can't afford for them to be heading across to our rivals in New Zealand to take where there's
Not
that
rivals.
0% capital gains. So,
There's
no,
worse places
I've
you
been
can
supporting
go,
the
that's
Kiwis
for
in the World
sure.
Cup.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, but yeah, really appreciate your insights. Thanks so much for your time on the Savings Tip Jar.
Nice. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks, Brooke.